Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is Health Matters on Channels Television. I am Mary Alala Yusuf. The global count of confirmed COVID-19 cases is now over 227 million. And as at Friday, September the 17th, the death toll was over 4.6 million. In Nigeria, there were more than 201,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19. More than 189,000 people had recovered, and we had 2,649 deaths. There were over 3,000 new infections during the week, between last week and today, and almost 4,000 recoveries. And 61 people died within that week, unfortunately. Recovery rate is up again to about 94%. Case fatality is 1.3%, and tested samples are over 2.9 million. Now we're going to talk about another sensitive issue, which is cholera. Cholera has been reported in at least 25 states and the FCT in every geopolitical zone. So far, there have been over 69,000 suspected cases and over 2,000 deaths of suspected cases. Children ages 5 to 14 are the most affected among males and females. On the show with me today is a public health physician and field epidemiologist, Dr. Jamiu Ganiyu. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Let's start from these suspected cases. Okay. Suspected cases, meaning that some of them may not be cholera.
Exactly.
Why are they suspected? What makes people suspect that they might be cholera?
Okay, well, it has to do with their standard case definition. When there is an outbreak, usually, you cannot test everybody. So usually we try to, as a public health physician, other group of experts, we try to develop a kind of case definition. And the case definition, usually in this case, is more of a clinical, using the clinical symptoms. We try to look at what are the presentation of cholera, the common thing, which is somebody that is passage of acute watery diarrhea with dehydration. So anybody in such situation, for instance, for the current one, in a place where outbreak has not been declared, we say any person from 2 years and above with acute watery diarrhea and with severe dehydration, or somebody dying from acute watery diarrhea with or without vomiting. So we can consider that. Then in a situation where there is an outbreak, we just consider somebody with somebody that is having acute watery diarrhea or having a kind of or dying from acute watery diarrhea with or without vomiting. So by the time you do that, you consider that as a suspected case. So from there, we may go on to try to investigate that person. And in investigation, you cannot, usually the gold standard is the stool. That is stool culture. That is taking the suspected case stool.
Well, if you see if you see that it's this rice water type of
stool, exactly,
which is very characteristic of cholera, you already make your
diagnosis
by that.
But despite that, yes, that is pathognomonic of that. But usually, again, we still try to investigate using the rapid test kit, especially in endemic situation. However, the rapid diagnosis, the sensitivity and specificity is not too encouraging. So one in a while, they do what they call sporadic testing, whereby they take specimen, sporadically take specimens on some of those suspected cases and subject it to culture. Yes.
Okay. So let's assume that some of these cases are not actually cholera.
Yeah.
What could they be?
Well, it could be just other diarrhea disease. There could be bacillary dysentery. There are other causes of that. And it could even be amoebic dysentery. And it could be acute food poisoning. So depending, and it could be people that are just maybe reacting to certain kind of diet and they can just be passing stool. But one thing that differentiates with that of cholera is that they're usually fever. And apart from fever, and usually the diarrhea is so severe that people can go into shock, hypotension. Then they could have a muscular spasm, that is muscular pain. And at times, some may even the dehydration may be so severe that they may have convulsion, drowsiness, and some may even become comatose. That is, they may go into unconsciousness.
Okay, so just as a diversion from
Yes.
the main topic,
Yes.
you just say these are suspected cases.
Yes.
If somebody had either bacillary dysentery or amoebic dysentery or all those other diarrheas, the treatment for cholera, would it handle those things as well?
Well, it will not. You know why cholera is a bit unique is the fact that within, looking at the incubation period, within 2 hours to 5 hours, somebody can lose almost, can become so severely dehydrated that he or she may even, find it difficult to even talk, or such person can even become drowsy, and what we fear most is issue of hypovolemic shock. People, the diarrhea is so severe that people lose a large volume of fluid in the system, and if a drastic action is not taken, that person may give up. So that is why it's a bit different from bacillary and other type of diarrhea disease.
We will come back to some of those effects.
Okay.
But this year, it seems to be the worst attack of cholera in Nigeria ever. Is this partly because of COVID-19? Why are we seeing this?
Well, I won't want to say it's because of COVID pandemic, but if you look at it, there are some, looking at the environment we have, there are risk factors that are predisposed to cholera. For instance, hygiene. It can be either personal, it could be food hygiene, and it could even be the environmental issue of environmental sanitation. Those are some of the factors. And another thing is when there is overcrowding, it tends to spread. And where there is improper disposal of healthcare waste, it can also...
So are we saying that we are becoming worse at all these things? I know that our population is increasing.
Yes.
Yes. But are we becoming worse at these other things?
Well, I won't say we are becoming worse, but why I mentioned the idea of overpopulation is because, wherever there is overcrowding, usually there is a kind of stress on the basic amenities like water, sanitary services, and so on. So the fact that in a situation whereby there is so much crowd, people will be struggling, access to water become a challenge, an issue of healthcare waste disposal, sanitary conditions like toilet. You may be in a slum where in a full house, maybe 20, they don't even have toilets. So some people practice open dumping, which is another thing that could predispose to that.
You have rain, you have a flood,
exactly.
And then it goes into people's farms,
Exactly.
and they fetch it at the river.
So those are some of that. This is being transmitted through fecal-oral route. That is, this organism is being shared in the stool, and when rain or breeze or take some of these things, they spread it on our food item, water at homes, and other inanimate objects, and through that process, people can get infected with the bacteria.
Okay, now some countries were plagued with this cholera years back, and they've overcome. What can people do personally, individually, to help themselves stay free of cholera?
Well, on individual level, I will be looking at primary, secondary, and tertiary. We have the primordial anyway, because individually, there are certain things that go beyond individual. That is what we are looking at.
Definitely.
Primordial prevention. When we are talking, because
but
cholera,
let's assume that,
yes,
nothing is being done about it on a larger scale.
Okay.
Is the human being helpless? Can they help themselves?
Okay, they can. Okay, we can do that. Under primary, can do what's called health promotion. What I mean by improving our housing conditions, trying to ensure that in our home we have safe water supply. Our sanitary condition is adequate. That is the way our sewage are being, disposed of. We have toilets. Or it could be pit, it could be the water type, depending. Then another thing, another approach is proper disposal of our waste we generate, because at times, housefly mechanically transmit cholera, especially,
Okay.
yes. So in a place where there are reservoir of housefly, There is need to take care of that. That is practice of open dumping of waste is another risk to that.
This
so,
is really terrible
yes.
because open defecation,
yes,
the housefly can just perch
exactly.
and then move on to food. No wonder it's so bad.
So that
no
is,
wonder why it's so bad.
Then another approach is health education. We need to educate people, especially on issue of ensuring that, especially in areas where the epidemics is ongoing currently, there is need for them to boil their water before they drink.
I was coming to that.
Yeah.
Safe water supply.
Me too.
Boiling will make it safe.
Safe for
what else will
individual
make
level.
it safe?
Another thing is that they can do is need to chlorinate the water. If
Can I chlorinate my water?
Well, it has to do with through community engagement. They may not be able to do that.
So it is like maybe a local government thing.
Exactly, they need to do that. Then another thing is personal hygiene, hand washing. When somebody come out from the toilet, that the person should be able to use water and soap to wash his or her hand is very important. Then food sanitation, where people cook their food. Some people don't have kitchen, they use an open space where doors, everything can just settle in. So that's another aspect that people need to be encouraged to do.
So are you saying that people who cook by the roadside could be serving cholera?
Especially where the outbreak is currently going, it's possible because, as I've said, where there are practice of open defecation, what happens by the time the feces become dry, what will happen? Doors, when wind can pick all those things and just land anywhere within the house, or within the kitchen area, or where the individual is cooking. So I think a safe place for cooking food is also very, very important to actually prevent and control the bacteria. Also, at this point, people should also be advised that they should practice the idea of cooking their food before they eat.
Okay.
Yes.
Don't eat raw food.
Raw food. And even if they have to eat fruits, it should be properly cooked.
Salad. A salad can be cooked.
So that's another issue whereby I think in such situation people need to just avoid for the meantime, especially where there is ongoing outbreak of such.
Just avoid raw
food for now. Cook food. And another thing is that immunity is also very important. It's not everybody that gets infected with cholera that manifest signs and symptoms. Out of 1 in 10 develop signs and symptoms. So we also encourage improvement in nutrition so as to help to build individual immunity. May go a long way in also helping.
But that takes us back to the fruits and vegetables. I wouldn't want to cook my pear or my apple, for example. Yeah. Is there something I can wash it with and be sure?
Like for me now, since the COVID pandemic, what I do, like orange, I use small soap and warm water and try to, wash them. But in areas like where the epidemic currently ongoing, if they cannot, have access to such, maybe cleaning of their fruits, or so, I will advise that they just for now avoid it. Then another thing is that food vendors in such area, they need to be properly inspected because they may serve as another reservoir of cholera. Because I want to say this again, carriers can be either those people that are sick, it can be either those people that are just recovery, and it can be healthy carriers, where people that are harboring
asymptomatic the infamous asymptomatic people.
Exactly. So these are some of the things we need to also really consider in that
hygiene is necessary.
It's highly necessary.
You never know where this thing is lurking.
Yes, and our environment, a kind of trying to make sure that we keep our environment clean, sweeping, trying to move all the respective surfaces and so on. Because somebody may be a carrier, touch on a particular surface, and a susceptible person will go and touch, and before you know, as I said, it is through fecal oral and through vomitus.
Call 0808-054-2233 if you have questions on cholera, and the doctor in-house will answer you. Dr. Ganiyu, so much to absorb, but there's still more. Let's say somebody already has cholera or something that looks like cholera. We all know that the ambulance system is not what we want it, what we would love it to be. It wouldn't get to you in 8 minutes, like they say is the correct time. Now, what does a person do in the house while they are going to the hospital? Or let's say it's night.
Well, I think in such situation, we advise the person to take as much as possible large quantity of ORS, that is oral rehydration therapy. Salts.
Yes.
So I will advise that person to take it, but they still need to go to the hospital because
definitely
they need because of the issue of hypovolemic shock, which I mentioned. They lose a lot of fluid. Not only fluid alone, they lose a lot of electrolytes. So they lose a lot of potassium. And also they are prone to what they call acidosis and so on. So the system is already, when they have such condition, the system is totally, is a situation of imbalance in the body system. So they need to quickly get back, get to the hospital as much as possible so that they can be on treatment. And one thing about it is that early treatment is very important because it determines the prognosis of whether somebody will survive or not. Because by the time somebody is so dehydrated that he or she has become so unconscious and so on, I think, well, they may still survive, but it may be associated with other complications.
Right?
Because somebody have coma and so on, you don't know the level of damage. So that's why people are advised immediately prompt diagnosis, early diagnosis and treatment is very, very important. And in our system, we have the idea, when they go to the hospital, we have a surveillance system for doing that. We call it the integrated surveillance and response strategy, which we use in the country. The moment a suspected case is diagnosed, either in a private or public hospital, people like that need to be, immediately there should be notification of this disease surveillance officer in the local government where such will be reported and appropriate actions will need to be taken.
I'm interested in some of these actions.
Yes.
When you say you have a surveillance system, what exactly are you doing apart from maybe evacuating the sick people? Are you testing maybe soil samples or gutter samples or something? Well, because I know they went into all these ramifications when it was polio that they were looking for. They were testing underground things. Is cholera as detailed as that?
No, it's not. Not that it's not as detailed, but it has its own mode of transmission. Every disease has its own mode of transmission. Polio is a different thing. Actually, polio too is a viral infection. It has its own mode of transmission anyway. Why they are doing that one is because they are suspecting what they call vaccine-derived polio, which is a challenge we are currently having. But as for the cholera, what they just need is to investigate, like if we are getting the line list, try to get information, the normal history taking, physical examination, just to establish what are the likely risk factors and so on. And if there are other people that are involved, we must try to get the source of where that person is so that they can quickly institute appropriate public health actions.
Let's take this call from Sunday in Delta State. Hello, Sunday. Are you there, Sunday?
Yeah, I'm here. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. What's your question?
My question is this health issue, how do you ensure that people in secondary school, primary school, and even teacher institutions, they get informed on these health issues? Because most of them, where they stay in school is dilapidated, using one toilet, 10 people using one toilet and all that. So how do you ensure that people like that, at that level, get informed properly so that they cannot be infected?
Thank you very much, Sunday. What are we doing about these schools? I know that things improved a little bit with the coming of COVID.
Yes.
You go to some schools, you see hand wash stations and all that. But beyond that?
Well, just to respond to what he said, ideally in every school there's supposed to be school health program, there's supposed to be sick bay, there's supposed to be either a nurse, a healthcare provider anyway, so that will help in providing health education, just like what I just mentioned, enlightening the pupils, the student that, especially in outbreak states where there are outbreak, you need to sensitize the people, let the people know, especially in the boarding school, and based on what I just mentioned, the issue of ensuring that they boil water, ensuring that they cook their food, issue of coordination. In such situation, that the school will take responsibility for chlorination of water in such situation.
Okay.
Then, as I was talking about a toilet, that means there will be people who ensure that the toilets are properly clean and taken care of, and on a periodic basis, they will ensure that they disinfect the toilet. And thank God we're in the COVID era now. We have hygiene commodities, so ensuring that there is soap, water, and so on. So
maybe that was a wake-up call.
So I
let's take Kazim. Sorry to cut you. Let's take
okay.
Kazim, who is in Ibadan. Hello, Kazim.
Hello, good afternoon, doctor and the moderator. Please, I want to ask a question. Maybe if somebody wants to take a fruit, it is necessary to warm the fruit before we eat it to avoid the cholera problem.
Good one.
What is
he said, do you have to warm your food before taking it?
That's why I say you cook your warm food. You don't eat cold food.
For example,
yes,
your food has already been cooked.
Yes.
You've kept it in the fridge. You ate some and, you couldn't finish it.
Yes.
You kept it in the fridge or on the counter. Then you want to eat it again for another meal. Do you have to warm it?
You have to warm it, especially when you are in the outbreak zone. You have to do that.
What's your definition of warm?
Well, just making sure
steam should be coming up.
Exactly, so that can if there is potential a fresh agent, it can easily take care of that. So you need to stay warm that food.
Thank you for that question. Okay, so now this thing about open defecation.
Yes.
No matter how much we preach,
yes,
if people do not have a place where they can pass their waste, they will not listen. What is being done to make sure everybody has access to a functioning and clean toilet? Is there something, is there a target? And when are we reaching this target?
Well, I wouldn't say ideally where it's supposed not to be. The issue of target should not even arise at all. But the problem is we're having that challenge. That means the appropriate regulatory body, the ministry, like Ministry of Environment, they need to wake up to their responsibility. Because you cannot have a house where there is no toilet. So there should be proper supervision of homes. And again, even in the building of homes, there are standards. You cannot have a home where there is no water supply, no infrastructure for proper disposal of waste, sewage, and other ways. So we need to start right from start. That is, let the appropriate body ensure that they take care of their responsibility. Because I can't see a situation whereby somebody will be, renting out his or her house and there is nothing like all those facilities. So there should be proper supervision. I know that Lagos is doing that. I've been part of.
Okay, let me just pause you there. We'll come back to that. Let's quickly take Paul from Abba. Hello, Paul.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. What's your question?
What I want to say is that since cholera is an infectious disease that are causing too much of vomiting and diarrhea, what are the tools to tackle the cholera?
Okay, thank you very much.
Right now. Thank you.
Tools to tackle cholera. And he's right, we haven't gone there yet. Somebody already has cholera.
Yes. I won't be mentioning drugs here, but what I know is that early diagnosis and proper treatment. Treatment will include rehydrating the person. They will give the person antibiotics.
I understand there's a vaccine.
Yes.
What are we doing about this?
Well, it's still part of, some states have started, we have vaccine for cholera, but the problem, we call it oral cholera vaccine. And they gave, I saw when they were giving it in Bauchi, but currently that it has not been, been agreed to be given nationwide. According to SCDC, they are still studying the epidemiological trend to see whether that. And one thing you have to know is that the issue of cholera go beyond Nigeria. There is need for international and both local and international cooperation.
Involvement.
Yes, for instance, now at the local level we have WASH, that is water,
Sanitation and hygiene.
So, and those people are really doing a lot in terms of campaign against open defecation, helping out to give all these hygiene kits and so on. So they are doing that.
So we have to close now. Okay. We have to close now. Okay. We'll do this another time. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Kazim, Sunday, and Paul, and thank you everyone who joined us from their homes. This is Health Matters. Have a lovely day. I am Mary Alale Yusuf.